All of us experience jealousy from time to time. It's a universal human emotion. For narcissistic people who are far more insecure than the rest of us, the experience of jealousy is far more deep and destructive and dark. Believe it or not, for all their swagger, narcissists are very jealous. Now, this jealousy can take a lot of different forms for a narcissist. Anybody who's ever been in a relationship with a narcissist will take note of the fact that they have no problem oftentimes flirting with other people and being somewhat inappropriate with other people. But the moment you even have a conversation with someone else, who is that person? Who is that guy? Who is it? What are you talking about? What does he want? You know what? I'm going to mess him up. Why is he talking to you? That kind of thing. So there is this sense of you can feel very much like a possession when you're in a relationship with anybody who's narcissistic. Anyone who's ever had a narcissistic parent may also be well acquainted with the territory of jealousy from a narcissist. Your parent, and this can be heartbreaking, your parent may actually be jealous of you. Even when you're a kid. Let's say you were getting attention as a child, and certainly as you got older, maybe you made more money than them. Maybe you had more opportunities, or actually were more attractive than your mother. Or maybe you married someone with more money, or who gave you a better life, or maybe you went on to have a better career than either of your parents. It's not unusual in those situations for a person with a narcissistic parent to find them getting jealous, putting them down, coveting what they want, or maybe even asking for more. Why did you not give me such a great gift if you have so much money? Or why didn't you give me a better gift than that one? Because they're sort of covetous and jealous. The entire dynamic of jealousy sometimes surprises people when it comes from a narcissist, because a narcissist feels so confident, right? They got it all. Why the heck would they be jealous of someone else? Remember, always remember, that at the core of it, narcissism is about insecurity. Insecurity. Who's jealous? Insecure people. That's who gets jealous. Now, let's take a moment though and take a critical look at jealousy. In many ways, it's a very normal human emotion. In fact, I've actually often believed that when a person's jealous, it really kind of means they have skin in the game. That if they're in a relationship with somebody and they feel jealous, they're like, yeah, I actually kind of still care. Like, it might be you're at a party and your partner is sitting on the other side of the room talking with someone just because they happen to maybe be in the same line of work. It's 5 minutes. You're like, that's cool. They're talking. I'm going to go get something to eat, something to drink. 10 minutes. After 15 minutes, you might sidle on over there and say, hi, honey, and kind of get in there for a kiss, mark your territory. It's normal. It's normal that when particularly if you're in a presumed monogamous relationship, you feel like someone might be honing in on your territory. We will feel jealous. The question is how we deal with that. Sometimes when we feel jealous, it can even be a little invigorating, like, oh, wow, I actually still do care. With a narcissist, it's a little bit darker and a little bit more out of control than that. When a narcissist feels jealous, they'll often completely deny it, or they'll hurl accusations at you. Like, how long have you been sleeping with him? And you're like, hello, we were just talking with each other at a party. So it'll be very confusing to you when they're making these accusations, because they're really coming from a place of insecurity for that narcissist. It's not as charming as them coming over and saying, hey, honey, why don't you introduce me to your new friend in a sort of warm way so that the new friend knows, hey, I've got a partner. It's not mild like that because a narcissistic person feels so threatened. Their jealousy can also make them into really sort of ugly people. Let's say a friend of theirs succeeds brilliantly. Let's say their friend goes on and, buys a beautiful new home or gets a beautiful new car, gets an amazing new job, or goes in graduate school someplace they've been dreaming of. Instead of being happy for their friend, I've known of so many cases where the narcissist will say, yeah, well, they bought that house in a fire zone. Guess we'll have to see what happens next year. Or actually will be really jealous at the wedding, will be fuming and not even having a nice time because they're so jealous of their friend's good fortune at meeting someone wonderful who's treating them really well, especially if the narcissist is still single. So it comes out in these sort of ugly, dark ways where they might even have insults or try to engage in mean-spirited gossip, put them down, or even just almost seem to enjoy when things don't quite go right for them. So it doesn't feel good. It can feel particularly bad when, for example, It's someone older kind of mocking someone who's younger in that very jealous way. And it can be devastating and heartbreaking when it's your own parent, your mother or your father, who is jealous of you. As you can imagine, when you have a narcissistic sibling, jealousy can very much be at play. The same way you guys might have been fighting over toys when you were small children, that can be playing out in adulthood, where you guys might be having a jealousy contest because maybe one of you has a better job or a better life or a better situation, or as life goes on, and it might even be an argument over a family estate, that the jealousy may also lean in and make your narcissistic sibling even more toxic than usual. A jealous coworker may keep you out of the loop, and you may not even get an important piece of information you need because that jealous coworker is trying to sabotage you. Jealousy is not always sort of a flattering trait. It can also be dangerous. And in a narcissist's hands, jealousy can actually be really quite tricky and really problematic. It's not just, again, that sort of, hey, they envy me. It can actually get pretty dark really quick. So here's a red flag that often comes up for narcissism. It's jealousy of other people's success. Now, there's a wonderful word in German that captures something so specific and pathologic. We all do it, right? The glee and joy that someone experiences at someone else's misfortune. That word is Schadenfreude. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. And it is a signature move of the narcissistic person. However, I know some of you might think that's what this was about, but it's not. That's not what this video is about. This video is about the red flag of the green monster called jealousy. A jealousy that shows up early and often in a narcissistic relationship. I guess the green-eyed monster, right? So here are some of the red flaggy jealous comments I have heard people say that I've written out over the years. Oh, God, anyone with a computer can write a book. I've been planning on it too, but I have so much other important stuff happening in my life. Or, of course he got that job. His father has all the connections. He's an idiot, so I'm sure they will humor him, and the rich will just get richer, and people like me will have to keep working harder than anyone else. Or, she better be glad she's getting married too young to a person with money, because look at her skin. She is going to age horribly, and I am sure he's going to trade her in for a younger model before long. Or, it's so sad that they're so insecure that they need that big house. I wonder what they're trying to compensate for. It's those digs that come up early and often. But remember, jealousy, the green-eyed monster of jealousy, is a universal emotion. We all feel it. Me, you, everyone. I think of jealousy as the canary in the psychological coal mine. The things that make us jealous are the things that ping our insecurity, whether that is our appearance, or our bank account, or our education, or our family of origin. The list is endless, and everybody has something. So what makes jealousy that shows up early a red flag? And why is it so relevant to narcissism? Again, as I said, all of us experience jealousy from time to time. It's a universal human emotion. For narcissistic people who are far more insecure than the rest of us, the experience of jealousy is far more deep and destructive and dark. And it comes up early because everyone they encounter is experienced as sort of a threat. And so at some level, unless someone's really down and out, everyone brings up a little bit of jealousy for most narcissistic people. It's the myriad passing comments, just like the ones I gave you as examples earlier in this video, that come up so early and often. But a particular red flag above all jealousies comes out, and that's around the success of other people. And these successes can be anything: a professional accomplishment, a promotion, finishing school, starting school, getting married, having a child, buying a house, going on a trip, whatever, take your pick. It's the success of other people that activates the insecurity, the shame, and the inadequacy of the narcissistic person. Many times you may even be taken aback by the jealous reaction they have about someone else's success. It may be about someone they do not even know.
For example, a story you are relating about someone, and for whatever reason, their inadequacy is being activated, and boom, the jealousy will pop. In an intimate relationship, their jealousy about someone's successes may be expressed in early dating relationships. In a familial relationship, you may not have understood how to process a parent's jealousy about other people as a child, but now you see it popping up all the time in them when you're an adult. And when you try to soften what they're saying, let them know that, hey, that person who succeeded, they really earned it. They worked hard for it. Whatever reasoning you try to give, you then find yourself in the unappealing situation of experiencing their narcissistic wrath. Your attempt to temper their reaction may actually activate their shame, and then boom, you get some of the wrath as well. Now, obviously, jealousy about other people's successes is a red flag that definitely shows up in workplaces. You may be working in a place where someone is always diminishing other people's accomplishments or otherwise invalidating other people's successes or hard works or whatever. Even when that other person's accomplishments, somebody works in an entirely different division or something, doesn't minimize the successes of the narcissistic person. And God forbid if it is something competitive and that there's something that the narcissistic person was hoping to achieve at, then the jealousy will feel downright poisonous. And now listen, again, we all have our moments when someone has something we want. We might even cast a little shade. But the consistency, pervasiveness, and them showing their jealousy early on without even knowing you. So sharing their jealousy about someone else's successes without even knowing you, pay attention to that. The heavy jealousy about someone else's success that shows itself early on is a potent red flag that many people kick themselves for not paying attention to earlier. So think about it and drop it in the comments too. Have you ever had that experience? You think about the narcissists you know or have known, that early in the game, they really, really were jealous of someone else having a good experience. And then what did that turn to over the course of your of your relationship with that person, whether it was a friendship or a intimate partnership, whatever? Drop that in the comments, because I'm guessing that this red flag is a lot more common than any of us think. Let's talk about envy. Envy is such a compelling part of the narcissistic personality and landscape that it is actually part of the actual diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. The DSM-5 basically says that narcissistic people envy others or believe that others envy them. So what's that about? What is it about envy that makes it so central to narcissism? Why is it even an issue? Why is envy even an issue? And if you suspect you have narcissistic patterns, what can you do about this part of the pattern, about the envy part? So welcome back to this series. This is for folks who say, listen, I watched this channel and I think I might be the narcissist. What do I do? This content is designed for people to chip away at that if they actually want to make these changes. And before I continue in this video on envy, please join us. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. And please do consider giving this video a thumbs up if you like it and find it helpful. We have content that comes out every day, so by subscribing, you can really be on to knowing you're getting your daily dose of narcissism, as it were. Now, envy is defined in the Oxford Dictionary as a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. It's a universal experience for every narcissistic person. Now, envy is something that's obviously quite human. We envy people who have more or better or different. So the issue really becomes degree. For the rest of us, the envy may pass from time to time. But for people with narcissistic personalities, it is pervasive and almost constant. There is not a day that would go by without envy being a central element of their day. Please, if you think at all you're narcissistic or have a narcissistic personality, or you're envious of people on a regular basis, or you have someone in your life who is an envier? Drop it in the comments. Let's see how many of you we got. Now, what's it about? Why is envy such a central characteristic of narcissism? Well, it kind of makes sense. Since the core conflict or the core wound in narcissism is the feeling of inadequacy and insecurity that bubbles up and results in a feeling of shame, envy is sort of a manifestation of that constant threat, the threat that someone has it better, which then crushes that sense of grandiosity. And that brings up negative feelings like resentment and anger, and that brings up shame, and then more anger and discontent and resentment. Envy is present in all forms of narcissism. It just looks different. In grandiose narcissistic people, the envy may show as putting someone down and making fun of someone, like, oh, wow, yeah, you got a new car? Actually looks like you're driving last year's model. Not so impressive. In vulnerable narcissism, that envy may present as victimization. I would be doing more than they're doing if I only had a rich parent. In malignant narcissistic people, it may make someone a target. You know, that dude needs to come around here, and that dude who's coming around here showing off, they need to stop doing that, or maybe we need to let him know that. And communal narcissism, it will be exhausting attempts to look like they aren't envious, because that isn't charitable, or being envious that someone else is getting more validation for their charitable deeds. Narcissism is about the pursuit of status, and someone is always bound to have more. So as a result, the envy of the higher status of others is a constant experience in narcissism. The problem with envy is that saying unkind things about someone who may be doing better or have it easier can leave a bad taste in other people's mouths. It can hurt the people you are criticizing and can also leave you feeling ashamed that you went there. None of it looks good or feels good, but it is an almost reactive, reflexive reaction to the good fortune of other people. The narcissistic person can find it almost intolerable to be in the presence of that good fortune. Please, if this is something you've experienced, drop a comment. What are some of the consequences that you have experienced as a result of being envious? Or what consequences have you witnessed other people experience for being envious? Now, on the flip side is that narcissistic people, if they aren't envying other people, they assume that other people envy them. Now, that can certainly serve as supply for a narcissistic person to know that other people covet what they are and who they are. It sort of props up their grandiose defenses and the entitlement, and it works for them. But on the other hand, it also leaves narcissistic people believing that other people are always working an angle with them, are always using them, or are out to get them or take advantage of them. This leaves a narcissistic person feeling that sort of constant sense of threat that makes them more likely to lash out or say something that is unkind or insensitive. It's a really difficult way to live. To think that the only reason someone is your friend or is dating you or is working with you is because you believe that they're in it for some kind of secondary gain, or you end up choosing people where that's the case. Now, the origin of this envy is likely to be a mix of things. It could be watching a parent be envious, or if you were feeling as though you were lacking something relative to others around you, especially when you were growing up. For example, if your family had less money, or there were aspects of your family that left you feeling like you were not measuring up and you envied others for what they had, or there was bullying around something that you were lacking. But it all comes down to insecurity, doesn't it? An insecure person will want what other people have in a bid to feel better about themselves. Now, entitlement also relates to envy. Entitled people believe that they are owed things and that they deserve things and should get things. And when those things don't happen, Then there's anger. And entitlement can also drive envy, because if you believe you should get something but you don't, and someone else does, that unrealized entitlement then becomes envy as well as anger. Now, you might be wondering if envy is your thing. Why do people have an issue with envious people? Well, envy makes people uncomfortable, especially if it colors much of your communication with other people. I remember once talking with a very narcissistic guy who envied everyone who had bigger homes, better cars, etc., etc. Listening to him talk was exhausting. His malcontentedness, the constant comparison, it was tiresome and it was gross. He alienated everyone he spoke with and often left them feeling downright uncomfortable. And if you didn't have more stuff or status than him, he assumed then that you instead would be the one who was wowed by all the fancy stuff he had. There was no such thing as a pleasant or easy conversation with this guy. And it was always so unpleasant that ultimately nobody really wanted to spend time with him. And the people who did actually were typically working an angle. So if you think you're narcissistic and envy is an issue for you, what do you do about this envy? Number one, you need to know that envy is a thing and it's not a nice thing. Envy can come out in different ways. And one way is passive-aggressive comments. The whole, wow, must be nice to have your trust fund get you into a beach house. It's sort of cringy and it makes people uncomfortable. It puts you at odds with other people, and that doesn't feel good, not for you and not for them. Second, you need to pay attention and do a deep dive on why status is so important to you. Is it a hedge against your insecurity? Is it a byproduct of having been bullied? Is it a message you receive from society, from your family? Whatever the origins are, this issue of status needs to be unpacked, because the relentless narcissistic pursuit of status is the fuel for this envy. Number three, got to work on gratitude. I know that sounds gimmicky and annoying, but you got to work on it nonetheless. Envy is about discontent and resentment. If you could get more aligned with what you already have, it can help offset some of that envy. Even a brief accounting of gratitude each day. It could be built into meditation or journaling. Any of these things can be a bit of a hedge against this. Number four, ask other people their backstories. Who knows, maybe it's someone you envy because of their new car. But maybe the rest of their life isn't all that. Talk to people. Don't just judge them on their new handbag or their great vacation or their car or their great job. Yeah, sure, some of them may actually be the human lottery winners who have enviable lives. But you would be surprised that behind some of those seemingly ideal exteriors are stories that show you that all isn't as simple and wonderful as it may seem. Number five, work on this envy thing in therapy. Therapy is meant to be a safe space to be vulnerable, to share those feelings of envy in a non-judgmental, supportive space, and have someone guide you through them. Therapy may help you to understand the origin of these feelings of envy, what else this may be masking, and by getting to the core of these feelings, they may not color your perception of the world and your relationship with people in the world. Number six, put down your fists and also recognize that everyone is not trying to play you, nor do they envy you. Some may, but just put your defenses down long enough to be vulnerable with other people. It may actually help you craft more meaningful and more depth-oriented relationships. So please, give us a comment. Can you think of other ways to work on letting go of envy? Again, as a review, envy is a classical and core dynamic of the narcissistic personality, and it makes life seem more combative and more lacking. It can put you at odds with other people and make you seem petty, which is not a nice way of being seen, and may be why people don't like talking to you. While we all go there sometimes, all of us sometimes feel some envy, the less you can fall into this cycle. Just to do that, it becomes a key way to push back on a core dynamic of narcissism that very likely puts you at odds and sometimes hurts other people. So let's talk about this one. What happens if you have a narcissist in your life and you become more successful than them, or you just become successful in your own right? Short answer, not pretty. It's interesting because you would think a narcissist might like it if their partner, friend, sibling, or family member becomes successful. It should reflect well on them. It might open up new opportunities. They might get narcissistic supply by association. Not so much, because narcissists are very, very insecure. And as a result of that insecurity, if you start getting to be more successful, the first thing your narcissist will experience is a sense of threat. Your success is going to activate their insecurity. They're going to wonder if you are going to leave them, surpass them, and it's going to lead them to wonder, what does this mean for me? If you are, let's start with an intimate relationship. Let's say for some reason, your hard work, your career really starts taking off. It may be a small taking off. You get promoted maybe to department head. It could be a huge taking off, and your startup company takes off. Your narcissist may very well be the first person to rain on your parade. And for a lot of people, their own success is one of the first times they recognize how petty, how sensitive, and how unkind their narcissistic partner can become. Let's face it, when you're in an intimate relationship, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to tell your partner. You get good news, you want to pick up that phone and say, you're not going to believe it. I got the promotion. My book contract got picked up. I got the part. I won the election. Whatever it is, that's the person you want to share it with. You like to think that person is your person. And a lot of people, right after all the love bombing and all that, they're often vulnerable to thinking, this person's got me, oh my gosh, they're going to be so excited for me. And then you get oh, wow. Or, oh, okay, do you think you're ready for that? And they will infuse it with doubt. And what felt like should be a red letter day with popping champagne corks and your own personal parade turns into one more day of self-doubt, like a lot of days are in narcissistic relationships. It can be heartbreaking because let's take that back a little to when you were a kid. The other place where your success might have been a threat, to a narcissistic parent. Obviously, a kid may not feel that threatened by a 5-year-old child, though you'd be surprised. But as that 5-year-old child gets older and maybe starts winning the sports trophies, or starts doing well in school, or is turning out to be a bigger, greater beauty than their narcissistic mother, or is getting more positive attention from the world, that child, knowing that they are succeeding, may literally feel guilty at surpassing their parents. That primitive dynamic for a child to feel that their success is not something celebrated by their narcissistic parent, but rather that it's something that threatens their narcissistic parent, is exactly the reason that some people learn at an early age to play down their accomplishments so they don't hurt their parents and leave their parents feeling as somehow they're not good enough, or that somehow they feel guilty because their parents may not have had that same opportunity. Now fast forward that into adulthood, where you desperately want a partner to be happy for you. But if you choose a narcissistic partner, which you're more likely to do if you've had a narcissistic parent, your experience of success can be met with that same sense of, oh, my goodness, that's something. Other things that may happen when you share your success with a narcissistic partner is on that day, they may make it about their bad day. Ah, you chose an interesting day to share this with me because today I found out my division is having budget cuts, so my job may be at risk. Or, God, it must be nice that this happened. I've only been trying for 5 years to get my book published, but how nice that your first time out, they decided to publish yours. They will literally turn it into their sad sack story rather than being present with you. There was once a show, again, sorry gentlemen who are watching this video, it's a girl reference, Sex and the City, I believe. I was watching this on an airplane once, and this episode came up. And it was the character of Carrie, who's a writer, was in a relationship with a guy named Jack, who was a writer. And all he would do is complain about it. It seemed like everything was so easy for her. She would get big residual checks. She'd be able to buy fancy things. She'd have these big book release events. And his writing wasn't as successful, even though she praised and praised and praised his writing and thought he was a brilliant writer. His career was foundering as hers was soaring. You could see him get angrier and angrier and her feel more and more uncomfortable and guilty with her success. It was just that perfect cinematic depiction of the narcissistic man and the woman who's getting more successful. What's very interesting is the catch-22. Many times narcissistic individuals are drawn and attracted to successful people, right? Because it makes them look good. It might put them in the right social circles. It's a way for them to feel good about themselves. But it can start to feel uncomfortable over time when there's a sense that the one person, if the narcissist feels here and their partner is here, that they need to kind of figure out a way to fill in that gap. And it's not unusual for the narcissist to blame the other person who's more successful for their lack of success, saying it's your fault because we had to put all our time into your career. We had to move for your career. Everything was about you, and they'll blame the other person for their lack of success. Many people have said that it was when their career, for any number of reasons, started to succeed, that the narcissistic dynamic in their relationship really got highlighted. When they were both at the same level, maybe both struggling in the same way, or when things changed over time. Maybe there was a time when one of them was more of a student, and so they were in a less financially comfortable position. Well, then that person was no longer a student and then started having greater success in their field. That too was unsettling for the narcissist. This can be a really tricky space because some people will almost sabotage their own success so they can keep the relationship with the narcissist going, knowing damn well that if they succeed too much, the narcissist will be too unsettled. It is not unusual when it's your big night that the narcissist will come and spoil it. They'll get drunk at the party for your promotion. They won't show up at a party or an event of something that you're launching. They won't come to that special lecture you're supposed to bring saying that they were not feeling well or they had a headache. Over and over again, you will feel disappointed because your narcissist doesn't want to share in or partake your success. Over time, you will get more and more frustrated, but then another dynamic gets highlighted. Because many people in narcissistic relationships desperately want to impress their partner, they're always trying to win them over. Even if you, as the healthy partner, is up here, you're making more money, you're more successful, you're killing it at work, you're killing it at life, and your narcissistic partner's down here, you still keep trying to get their attention. Sound familiar? Probably what you had to do as a kid to garner your parents' attention. Look, Mom and Dad, I got straight A's. Look, I got the soccer trophy. Look, I got the lead in the play. Look, I did this. Look, I did that. Please pay attention to me. That attention a child craves, they never get. So when they go into adulthood and they keep succeeding the same way they tried to as a kid to win over that parent, now as an adult, they're doing it to win over that partner. And then they're finding out that it's actually going a very different way. The more that you succeed, the more that your narcissistic partner takes umbrage at it, that pushes it away, that doesn't show up at your events. You don't even get a chance to almost show off for them. That disappointment can weigh on you over time. And what gets interesting is that this is not an unusual juncture at which the narcissistic partner may commit infidelity and cheat on you. Remember, they may not feel like they can keep up with you. All of their insecurity is being boom, boom, boom turned on. And they may not feel like they can get the supply they once got from you, even though you're being the same with them as you've always been. They may seek out new narcissistic supply in the form of an inappropriate relationship, and they'll often choose someone who doesn't have as much power than them, someone who's younger than them, someone who's in a subjugated position to them, just to get that sense of power. They clearly no longer feel with you, even though you desperately want to share your success with them. So if you are in a narcissistic relationship and you are succeeding, be prepared that the gap between you and your narcissistic partner may very well grow. The invalidation may become more invalidating, the disrespect more disrespectful, the mean comments meaner, the hurt greater. They want you to feel as bad as they do. The narcissist often engages in projection, projecting all of those icky feelings they have onto you, and that feeling of discomfort is one that they will often basically do the psychological equivalent of vomit all over you. The success dynamic plays out in narcissistic family systems too when you get to be an adult. It's very interesting because what often happens is a child from a narcissistic family system who may go on to tremendous success often wants to spoil their parents, in some ways to try to keep winning them over. As a 5-year-old, maybe your drawing in art class wasn't enough, but as a 30-year-old or 40-year-old or 50-year-old, maybe you could buy him a fancy car or take him on a fancy vacation. Heck, I even heard of one story where somebody bought their parents a house. They had a deeply, deeply hurtful narcissistic mother, and the mom's comment was, that's interesting. I thought you were going to buy me a bigger one. And honestly, when I talked to this man, his face looked as hurt as a face would look of a 5-year-old child whose mom wasn't interested in the Valentine that they made for them. Same hurt, maybe different stakes and different scale, whether it's your 5-year-old Valentine or your 35 or 55-year-old beach house, it's the same thing. In those family dynamics, as you try to win over your parents, it's not unusual for the narcissistic father to criticize you and say, well, back in my day, it was a lot harder to do this. It must be nice to come up in an era where it's easier. Or a narcissistic mother to say to you, well, it's a lot easier for you. You have a very supportive spouse. Had I had that kind of support, blah, blah, blah. Lots of passive-aggressive barbs as you get more and more successful. And you may even see, you might even become your family's scapegoat. Even if you were the golden child as a child, as an adult, if you were arrogant enough to try to out-succeed everyone, even though it seems that's all your parents wanted you to do, that once you start doing it, again, you activate those insecurities in your parents. The hardest thing to watch is that many times when people get into narcissistic relationships, it's the equivalent of tying sandbags to your feet. No matter how big the balloon is over your head, you're not able to launch because you almost feel a sense of survivor guilt at out-surpassing the narcissists in your lives. Their willingness to generate a sense of guilt, to use passive-aggressive comments, to diminish your success, to minimize it with hurtful comments, with criticisms, with jokes, with mockery, to minimize you by saying, oh my gosh, really? We're going to talk about your promotion again? When it was only the second time you've brought it up. If I can give you only one piece of guidance, if you come from a narcissistic family or you have a narcissistic partner and things in your life are looking up in small ways or big ways, promise me one thing. Please take that success experience and share it with people who are worthy of hearing it first. I hope that all of you have at least one friend or one family member who will hear your success and be so happy about it, they'll be like, we got to buy all the champagne in town, or I am taking you out to dinner, or they literally get tears in their eyes because they're so happy for you. Launch your achievements. Launch your success. Share that success with the people who appreciate it the right way. At some point, you got to go home and share it with your narcissist or let your family know about it. But by the time you do, I hope you've had the experience of sharing it with those people who are your cheerleaders, who are happy for you, and who uplift you. Get those sandbags off your feet. It is okay to succeed. It's the narcissist problem if they are too damn insecure to be there for you. I can almost promise you they will be. Or, in another telling of the story, may even take credit for your success. Well, you wouldn't have gotten there if I hadn't mentored you. You wouldn't have gotten there if I didn't make those introductions for you. You would have never have gotten there unless I had supported you all those years. Or my favorite, when it's patently untrue, well, you know darn well you got there by being flirtatious and inappropriate. For all I know, you may have even slept your way to the top. Those are the kinds of things a narcissist will do to either take credit for your success or diminish it in such a way that you even start doubting it. Please, please, please don't pawn your soul off that way. Be your own cheerleader. Find your own cheerleaders. And then, after you've told many people, and only then, tell it to your narcissist as a passing comment. Don't turn to them for the popping champagne cork. Let them know, because it's probably good for them to know that something happened in your life, but wait a few days. Here's to hoping all of you find the successes you so richly deserve. Just make sure you share them in the right place first. Please hit the bell. Please subscribe. Many, many more videos coming like this. And if you have ideas for videos, please drop them here because we pick them all up and turn them into this content. So in that way, it's very crowdsourced and it's meant to be responsive to this amazing community we've created on YouTube and on Instagram and through all the many people who are following this work in a variety of ways. Thanks again.